Number 3.
The Packers. They're hot, they're healthy, and they are now a power run team. That game in Seattle, they turned the lights out on that thing after 2 drives. 8-2 since the start of October. Now, both losses were to the Lions because the Lions have a better team, but they don't today. I love Green Bay. When they hold opponents under 25, they're 9-1. And I think Matt LaFleur is on a short list of one of the most underrated coaches in the league. Remember when he was at Tennessee? His reputation was he likes to lead with the run. He had Derrick Henry. In Green Bay, this is his offense and his team. This is what Matt LaFleur knows. He is a run first. He's got a lot of Sean McVay and Shanahan. He likes the run game. Green Bay at 3.
No.
You know, it's actually pretty interesting when you think about it. I try not to overuse the whole underrated, overrated type terminology because, hater, bias, media bias. I really try to be very strategic because it would be very easy, honestly, to say it about every team because almost all the fan bases feel that their teams are being underrated. Media bias against them. You ask the Lions fans, they say the media is biased against us. They want us to lose. You ask the Eagles fans, the media is biased. They want us to lose. The Bills fans and so forth. Every single fan base thinks it about them. And I tried to, honestly, if I think that's true somewhere, then I try to accurately portray it. I try not to feed into something that I don't think is real. But I do think that the Green Bay Packers are actually wildly underrated and overlooked, and actually from like pretty much everywhere when you really think about it, from their receivers to Jordan Love to their tight end to Matt LaFleur, like every step of the way, every position, every coach, it's just not the levels of respect about the Green Bay Packers, and it's very obvious to me. Like, I just even want to bring up their roster. I mean, we know Jordan Love is great. I mean, I know it. But there's a lot of people that still kind of doubt that. And how often are people really talking about Josh Jacobs? I mean, I know Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley have obviously gotten a lot of that energy. But, like, Josh Jacobs has gotten whispers. Dude's 26 years old and has been a beast. What about Dobbs? What about Reed? Watson? Kraft? I mean, like, the team's got dudes. What about everyone's talking about Brian Flores' defense and any of these other defensive coordinators? What about Jeff Hafley? Right? And we talk about how the amazing job that Kevin O'Connell has done, Mike Tomlin has done, McVay, like, but it's like, again, Matt LaFleur. And again, it's not to say that those other coaches or other players don't deserve credit and praise, but it just hasn't been very loud for the Green Bay Packers. And I'm not entirely sure why. And it's definitely not media bias or anything like that. I just wonder if it's just like people just don't know these names or these players enough. I know they're young, and that's definitely part of it. I don't know if it's just because we haven't had like a Hard Knocks with them where people really got to know them and, see some interviews and some weird sound bites and watch them doing any of the weird stuff that those teams always do on Hard Knocks, where they're like having weird conversations in the weight room, or I don't know, doing pottery or having a family wing night dinner or something. Like, always like the most random stuff on Hard Knocks. And in a lot of ways, that's how everybody was introduced to the Detroit Lions, because of Hard Knocks back in 21, I think it was 21 or 22, I forget. And that's how you got to know more about Dan Campbell. You got to see Goff kind of through his whole journey. Amon-Ra St. Brown, etc., etc. And yet there still seems to, like, people still seem to forget. And I understand, because we live in this wins and losses world in the NFL, which I always try to combat. But they really were just a play away from going to the NFC Championship game last year. And that really just shows you how close this team really is. They really are just right there. And that was not a fluke. Like, that's the thing. It's one thing if they rolled the Cowboys, but then they got beat pretty good against the 49ers. Then you would say, yeah, that was a great game against the Cowboys, but the Cowboys aren't that good. And, the Packers caught them off guard and blah, 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 blah. But they had the NFC champions, like, right there on the edge, on the road. They had them. The Packers were right there. And because of the way how this season started, people still don't really appreciate who the Packers are and what they're capable of achieving. And that is becoming more and more and more clear to me with every video and with every week that goes on about the Packers. There's still a tremendous amount of doubt. And on the one side, I do understand because of all the things that I mapped out. And the other part of it, I understand because even in their wins, it's been laced with some inconsistency throughout it. A little bit of less intentional. It felt like it was less like this is what we're set out to do and this is what we're going to do. It definitely felt more freestyle, more backyardy to a degree. And that's why I love the game against the Seahawks, because that was intentional. That was like every single guy knew exactly what they needed to do. And it was reminiscent of the game against the Cowboys. It was just like, we know exactly. I mean, there was just such concentration and intentionality. And that's one of the first things that I look for. When a team is doing well and they're winning or they're playing good, is it intentional? Are they playing with a purpose, or is it just kind of happening? And we see plenty of games where it's just kind of like happening. Or you're just taking it, you're just a better team, so of course you're going to beat them, or you're going to be able to lean on them, and you're just going to be able to get the job done. But this was intentional. It was very specific. You can see the game plan. You can see what they wanted to do, what they were trying to do, and what they were doing. And you can see them all match up together. You could see it all align. So these next few games are going to be really, really telling. And I don't think they need to like win all these games to prove who they are. Especially because, going up against the Vikings, it's like that could be a playoff preview. And so like you're not going to necessarily show everything out there in that game. And again, it all depends on what the standings look like. What's at risk for the Packers at this point. I don't really know what would be at risk. Will their seating be pretty much locked in? So like, yeah, they want to win the game, but it, doesn't really matter as much. Or is it like, no, they got to get this game because of whatever. We'll have to wait and see. But I just think that the Packers are in considerably better position than people believe they are. Not to mention, and this is the crazy part, Jordan Love is still getting better. You guys understand that, right? You understand that this isn't the complete product of Jordan Love? He's still growing and maturing and getting better and better and better. This season, that kind of more like linear progress, and it's never really linear, but just to make things really simple, you would like to see, if you really kind of pull back and weren't looking too closely, you would still see it going up. It would still be some sort of linear. You wouldn't really see these big things. But because of the injuries, because of them, when you're coming back now, you're dealing with rust, injury, and a couple other things, some bad luck and whatnot, some tough matchups when you first come back, like playing the Minnesota Vikings. That was always going to be a tough game to come back. Some of that continued progress that we saw take place last year, we didn't get to really see. It wasn't very clearly defined. It was like looking at a picture without a frame around it. So it was you were kind of getting lost with the edges. You weren't really sure where it ended. So it just got a little cloudier, which again is understandable. It makes logical sense when you really take a step back and think about it. But now if you take a step back forward into it and you're like, well, wait a second. If you believe who Jordan Love is, well, then you will believe that he is going to continue to get better. The dude still has the runway to improve and get better and better and better. I'm not saying he's about to unlock his peak, his next level this season, because it's still going to take time. But we can already see him get more settled. And you know what one of the benefits is of him throwing those interceptions, which I've already defended, and so I'm not going to do a deep dive into that. But one of those benefits is that it has made him more resilient. It has made him more fearless. He has now had to, many times this season, deal with the feeling, because when you're a quarterback and you throw that interception, it's a rough one because you got to now go sit on the bench. And you got to feel it, man. You got to feel it. I think probably the closest feeling for someone who's never really played sports that you could compare it to is almost like a rejection when you're trying to like ask like a girl or a guy out on a date. Or like, you know, if you try to strike up even something as small as you just trying to strike up a conversation with someone and you can tell they're not interested. Right? Whether you're at the grocery store, at a party, whatever, and you're like, oh hey, how you doing? And they're like, hi. And they just kind of like keep walking, and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, they were not interested. Like you feel that. You feel it. And it's just like, oh man. I think again, if you haven't played sports, that's probably a pretty good comparison because it just you feel it from your head to your toes. You go into your head, and so the fact that he's had to now deal with that a lot this season, I promise you, it's only made him stronger and better, and it sets him up because there's a great chance he will throw an interception in the playoffs. And that's what quarterbacks do. Quarterbacks turn the ball over. It's part of the nature of being a quarterback. He's going to turn it all over. He might have a fumble, might have an interception. We've seen Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, every quarterback do it. But being able to just be like, nah, whatever. That doesn't define me. I've already done that. I've already had those turnovers. And I know that it didn't matter. I know that we still found ways to win. I know that just because I threw a couple turnovers this game doesn't mean that I'm going to throw a couple of turnovers next game. I don't have the feeling of like, oh no. Am I losing it? What do I do? You would have that earlier on in your career, earlier on in a season, after only having theoretically one good year. You would there's still going to be some doubt. I mean that's just, you know, common experience when you're a second year player like, you know, second year starter like that. He's still at the point of his career where he still is kind of having to go have that conversation back and forth in his mind. I belong. No, I don't. I belong. No, I don't. I belong. No, I don't. I'm a top quarterback. You're trash. I promise you, in his mind, he has random thoughts that say, you're trash. You're not good. What are you doing? It's such a common experience. And it gets heightened. It gets magnified when you get banged up, when you get injured, when you throw, you know, when you turn the ball over. Even something of an injury like that, one of your automatic thoughts are, what will I look like after? And I know he didn't get surgery and stuff like that. It's definitely more heightened when you get surgery. But even if you know you're going to recover and get better, and the doctor says, oh, you'll get better, there's still that hesitation. There's still that fear. Well, this still feels weird. This still is not what I'm used to. It's still something that you just have to learn to and experience firsthand. And like I said, these athletes are in constant conversation with themselves. Constant. As we all are, quite frankly. The stakes are just magnified for these guys. And so having to go through all of that this season, I think is actually a positive. It actually benefits him. And I think it'll make him a better, more battle-tested quarterback come time playoffs. And so if you're getting now a more battle-tested, a more psychologically, resilient Jordan Love, and the rest of the team now, in their own way, is also going through their own kind of experience with all of that. They're also improving and growing, especially when you look at all the ages. And now you have the leader of Matt LaFleur to tie this all together, and Jeff to take care of the business defensively. Yeah, man. It's not a surprise that Colin will put them top 3. At this point, I'm not getting too lost in the numbers. I never did, honestly, even turning in week 1. But especially right now, am just like, I'm not so interested in trying to figure out, you know, where exactly. Like, no, the Packers should be 2. No, they should be 5. Like, it's like, who cares? I'm just confident in saying that the Packers are absolutely a top team. And if you're a Chiefs fan, a Bills fan, a Ravens fan, an Eagles fan, a Lions fan, a Vikings fan, there is no scenario that in any way should you be like, oh, right, we got the Packers. All right, we got that game. Who do we play the winner of for the next round? Like, no. That's not how that game will be. Believe me, that's how the Dallas Cowboys felt last year. Didn't work out too well for them. Oh, we're home. We win. All we do is win at home. We're unstoppable. Let's go. Dak Prescott. Here we go. Micah. CD Lamb. Uh-oh. So, yeah. You know, doubt them if you want. Underrate them if you want. I'll just say best of luck with that. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? about the Green Bay Packers. Colin ranking them third. It's crazy. I mean, he's kind of gone in and out with them. 1 minute they're top 10, then they're out of top 10, then they're 5, now they're 3. He's talking about Jordan Love being, in the realm of Patrick Mahomes. And then he's like, Jordan Love's too loose with the ball, So it's been a journey as well. But let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. It's whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.